Hey, what's up, guys? Jake Hamilton here. Just wrapped up a really fun interview with the great comedian director Paul Feig. He's been, an actor. He's been a director. He's been a writer. He's been an executive producer. We were speaking for his new HBO Max series. It's called Love Life. You'll want to check it out whenever it hits HBO Max. But because we had a little bit of extra time, we were able to chat about a lot of different things, including, of course, the 20th anniversary of Freaks and Geeks, his time spent on The Office, and just sort of what's going on in the world of COVID-19 right now, and is there a movie to come out of this? As always, if you don't already, do me a favor, go down, hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications. I've been trying to land a lot of these celebrity at-home interviews and trying to post a couple a day, at least one a day. And obviously, we're not traveling the world anymore, but we're still doing a pretty good job of landing some pretty good people. So go ahead and do that. And if you don't already, head on over to Instagram, give me a follow at Jake's Takes. I'm always posting fun interview clips and celebrity pictures and behind-the-scenes stories. So hopefully you'll enjoy that. And hopefully you'll enjoy my interview with the very cool director, Paul Feig.
Hello.
Paul, how are you, sir?
Good, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing well. I knew I should have worn a jacket today. I was thinking, because every time we do the junkets, you're the best. I always wear a suit, but you're always the best dressed man.
You look great.
Yeah,
you dress better than 90% of people during quarantine right now. So
that's sad that a blue button up is what does it.
You know what?
Oh, it's so good to see you. I was just asking Amanda, so I want to ask you: is everyone's good? Everyone's healthy? Everyone's happy?
Yeah. No complaints on our end. No, I'd be a monster if I complained. We're very lucky.
Okay, fair enough. That's sort of how I feel too. It's like I'm being paid to stay home and talk to people about movies. So in the grand scheme of things, like all is well. All is well.
Done.
Are you ready to get going?
Yeah, I want to turn one more light on here.
Yeah, no worries.
That helps a bit. There we go.
Thank you so much. But seriously, thank you for taking the time to do this. So good to see you, sir.
Oh, you too, Jake. My goodness, what a pleasure.
I want to start out talking about basically telling stories about love, because love is just by nature of time and technology. How people meet people has changed, but certain aspects of love are everlasting. Love is in the 40s as it was today, or whatever the case may be. When you're a storyteller and you want to tell a story about love, what are aspects that are continuously changing that you have to sort of evolve with the times? And what are aspects of the story that have to constantly stay the same?
Well, I mean, love is one of the most consistent human emotions there is. And so even though the trappings around love change as far as cultural touchstones and, how society kind of is laid out, the emotions of love are exactly the same as they were, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. And that's why love stories are so universal, because they just don't go away. I'm really good friends with Nancy Meyers, the great director, and she always says nobody doesn't want to hear a story about how somebody else fell in love. And it's true. Like, we always go, like, whenever you meet a couple, like, how'd you meet? We're always like so wrapped with whatever story they had, no matter how weird or boring or exciting it was. Like, we all lived through that. So I think love stories are just such connections to other humans for all of us. And it's something that we all just are fascinated by.
Well, it's funny you say that, because whenever I talk to my parents have been married for coming up on 35 years, and they'll tell me a story. My dad will say something like, oh yeah, like I called her and I asked her to be at this place at this time, and then she showed up. And I go, like, there was no texting? Obviously, like, there's no, you just had to call someone, make plans, and you just had to assume that they were going to be there. Like, my girlfriend and I probably text each other when we could 30 times before we both end up at the same restaurant. What is an aspect about dating today that you think maybe in 30 years people are going to look back on and go, like, that was a thing? You guys did that?
Maybe we'll be able to teleport to each other in 30 years. Like, bang,
so there's no being late whatsoever.
No, exactly. No, technology has definitely changed the landscape of falling in love a little bit, or at least the opportunity to fall in love. And I think it's great, actually. I mean, you used to be very geographically bound by where you are and the people around you. And now, at least through, a lot of these dating apps and just the internet in general and message boards and all the special groups you can do online, you at least can find people with more, common interests with yourself. And I think it's lovely, because, Tim Minchin has a great song, the great Tim Minchin. He's a Australian singer-songwriter, and it's all about how he met his wife at this small island in, like, Australia, and how, of course, there could not be anybody else in the world right for me except for this one person I met in this one little place. And that's kind of how love is. It's sort of like I do feel there are soulmates, but at the same time, I feel like there are probably several soulmates around, and depending on the proximity and the things you have in common, how those come together. So I do think technology can at least help maybe find the more perfect match sometimes, but love is love, and if you find the person that you really care about, that's what's most important.
Obviously you have worked with a series in the past, whether you've created one or, sometimes you've guest starred or you've directed episodes or executive produced. And I'm sort of curious, I always love a good series just because you get to know characters over a period of time, as opposed to sometimes with movies, you got 2 hours and that's it. Who is a character that's been in one of your films that we really only got to hang with for 2 hours that you'd love to maybe just explore over the course of 10 episodes or maybe a couple of seasons just to get to know them a little bit better?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so many. I mean, that's always the challenge of making a movie, is the fact that we have this very short amount of time to introduce a character, put you through the ringer with them, and then make you feel like you had a complete story with them. But you are left going like, I want more. That's why I think people want sequels to certain movies. I mean, honestly, I feel like so many of my movies could benefit from that. I mean, a lot of the characters in Bridesmaids, especially like the side character of Wendy McClendon-Covey and Ellie Kemper and all of them. I want to go into their lives, but I also would love to very much in my movie Spy. I want to follow Jason Statham's character Rick Ford around. That's my obsession. I want to be in real life with Rick Ford.
That is, you have such a quick sidebar, but I had the pleasure of interviewing Ellie Kemper the other day, and we were geeking out about how John Hamm doesn't get enough credit for being as funny as he is. And people don't talk about how funny Jason Statham was. That is one of my favorite comedic performances of probably the last 10 years. He was unbelievable. You have a great tendency for finding people who we don't really think of as funny, but then you bring out a great funny side of them.
Thanks. I mean, it's my favorite thing to do is to surprise people in that way. I mean, we got to do it with Chris Hemsworth and Ghostbusters. And it's
my God, yes.
There's just something about you have such an expectation. I love breaking expectation. I think that's the most fun thing we can do in comedy, is somebody goes like, all right, I know what that's going to be. When I wrote the role for Jason in Spy, when the studio and everybody read the script, they're like, oh, so that's going to be like Ben Stiller or Will Ferrell. I was like, no, it's going to be Jason Statham. They're like, what? And then, and then he's so funny. But the great thing about Jason was when he came to our first kind of read-through rehearsal, he's like, so should I try to be funny? I said, Jason, you have to treat this like it's the most serious movie you ever did in your life. And he just treated it dead serious. And that's what's funny. When people try to be funny, it's not funny. When they don't try to be funny, it's hilarious.
That's such great direction. That is a filmmaker's direction right there. Thinking about one of the reasons I like to Love Life is this idea that just because a relationship doesn't work out for one reason or another doesn't make it a failure, because it gets you from A to B. It gets you where you need to be. The relationships that didn't work out before led me to this girl that I'm dating now. So I'm sort of curious, thinking about that from a professional angle, what is a professional failure that you've had that you're almost grateful for because it got you to where you are today?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's several. I think, honestly, I think it's when my acting career, the end of my acting career was sort of thrust upon me because I've been a struggling actor, and I've actually been on like four like TV series as a regular that all got canceled after the first season. But then I finally got on a show called Sabrina the Teenage Witch as the science teacher. And so as an actor, you're always like, oh, thank goodness, I'm taken care of for the next 8 years of shows ahead, because they're just going to tell me what to wear and tell me what to say, and they're going to cut my hair for me and all that stuff. So I did the first season, and it was a big success. And then, so I took all my money from that and made a little independent film. And then they called me when I was in the middle of putting my movie together, all my money spent, and said, oh, we're actually not going to bring you back to the show. We don't know how to write for you. It's like, what? But it was the greatest thing, because I've been wanting to get behind the camera. I've been wanting to direct. And so it just kind of kicked me out of the nest. And a year later, I created Freaks and Geeks, and everything's been fine ever since. So.
The real question is, when are we going to get the series about your character from The Office that had the dog, the cat, and the mouse? Like that's the 8 season arc.
That's going to be the hot new show, I tell you. But it'll be more like I'll be a detective who solves cases.
Yes. You know what? If Tiger King can be a hit, Dog, Cat, Mouse is the next thing.
Dog, Cat, Mouse King. That's me.
Yes, I'm in. I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold. One of the things people have been talking about, just to sort of in the film world on social media, is who is going to be the first person to take what's going on, the quarantine situation or the social distancing, and make a movie about it. And sort of the general idea that a lot of people are predicting is that the first one is going to be like a love, like two people hate each other and then they get forced to quarantine together and then fall in love. Obviously, it's very serious what's going on right now, but just in the world of social distancing and quarantine, from a storyteller's perspective, is there a movie story in here? Is there a love story to be told?
Well, there's definitely a love story to be told. I 100% agree. I think, the greatest love stories, especially like screwball comedies, are about two people who get kind of stuck together, who don't like each other. And then because of that, they fall in love. So, I mean, quarantine is definitely gives you that possibility. My question is just, once we're through with this, are we ever going to even want to hear the word quarantine again? That's the key.
That's the thing. Sort of what I'm wondering too is that, like, I kind of feel like, honestly, when this is done, I don't want to pay to go see a movie about that thing that just happened.
We're gonna want to watch movies where people in crowds and people are hugging and kissing.
Yeah,
that's the movie we're all gonna want.
Do you watch movies or TV shows, or whenever like two characters hug or shake hands, there's a part of me that goes like, ooh, like, ooh, like,
constantly. We've been watching a lot of old movies from the 30s and 40s, my wife and I, during this. And you're always like, oh no, look, get away. You're too close in that ballroom.
I guess that's a good sign. It means we're sort of being trained to have those right reactions, which I guess is good.
Yeah, no, it's good. But I think the new porn is just watching people shake hands.
You're absolutely right. You brought up quickly what is one of, I think, the greatest series of all time, which is a show called Freaks and Geeks, which on October 17th of this year will be the 20th anniversary of its final episode when it aired. I'm sort of curious about, I mean, you could talk about the legacy of that show all day, just in terms of the cast and everything with the cast. But when you look back on 20 years since that show ended, and really, I'd imagine how many people come up to you on a day-to-day basis and talk to you about it. Is that the greatest feeling of all? Maybe it didn't go as long as we all wanted it to, but 20 years later, we're still talking about it.
Yeah, it's really what you always hope is going to happen when you have a TV show, and you never dare dream it will. And especially when we did it back then, there weren't even a lot of kind of secondary markets where you could show it. I mean, shows weren't even coming out on DVD at that point. Mm-hmm. So there's always this feeling of like, if you didn't make it to 100 episodes and get syndicated, then you just basically didn't exist. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that we 20 years later are still vital and people watch it and people, still relate to it. That's just a filmmaker's dream. So I'm just thankful every single day that we have that. And a special shout out to Shout Factory, who 4 years after we got canceled, ponied up the money to buy all the music rights so that we could put the show out on DVD, because people had wanted to put it out before that, but they couldn't afford the music. So they wanted us to replace the music. And it's like, the music is like a character in the movie, so we can't do it. So thanks to them, and and it's just been taken off like wildfire since then. So we're very grateful.
Now that I think about it, it is a great soundtrack, and I guess a great soundtrack costs a lot of money. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, when you do a TV show like that, you usually just buy the rights for like 6 months so they can air it twice, and then you don't have it. So because again, once there was no secondary market at that point, but we did it. We sorted it out. Thanks, Shout Factory.
Love that. And one of the last things I really want to talk to you about is I feel like you do not get enough credit for directing some of the greatest Office episodes of all time. And The Office obviously turned 15 this year, which is my excuse to bring it up. But I was looking at the list because I remember, I've rewatched it, I kid you not, probably 10 times. Yeah. And every once in a while I would see your name pop up and go, oh, cool, Paul did this one. And then I looked at the full list of all the ones you did, like, the iconic ones. Like you did, like if there were a greatest hits album of Office episodes, you directed most of those. And I'm sort of curious about how do you bring your style to a comedy show that is already established? Because imagine like if Quentin Tarantino did one, he couldn't do a Quentin Tarantino episode of how do you inject your flair but make sure it still like fits within the frame of an Office episode?
Well, I mean, honestly, my style is all about the performers. I try to get myself out of the way so that I can make them shine, and I'm all about them and what I can give them to make them better. And with a cast like The Office, it was a lot. They were so inventive. It was just kind of making sure that I gave them room to do what they do, and could give them either the latitude or the inspiration to take it further. They were just brilliant. I mean, Steve Carell is such a genius, and you just got, oh, try this. And then I credit Greg Daniels, who ran the show, for being able to jettison written storylines they might have had if we got some improv that sort of expanded, and he would clear out another story in order to let that thing that happened on the set in the moment that was so funny breathe and be in the show. And I worked on a lot of other shows where the showrunner just won't do that. If it's not from their script, they won't put it in the show. But if it's something's great, that's in that one of my movies. I'm the same way. If like we come across something during the shooting, I'm not going to cut that out. I'm going to put it in because it's funnier than what I had, written or planned on. So it's really just being in service of the actors and creating an environment where they can thrive.
For sure. Well, you did a great job. Seriously, some of my favorite episodes were the ones that were directed by you. And as we circle back around, I want to end on Love Life and obviously going to HBO Max. And there's this big conversation right now, especially with theatrical productions that we're going to go to movie theaters, but instead are going to different streaming services or VOD. As a director, what's your thought on that? Because obviously a lot of movie theater chains are obviously Love Life was made for HBO Max. But I'm just sort of curious, like your thoughts on sort of this weird gray area where, people want content, they want it on their TVs right now, but we also don't want to miss out. I mean, comedies, the best comedies, my experiences were in theaters on opening night full of people, and I don't want to lose that.
No, I am 100% with you. I am so dedicated to the theatrical experience. I love movie theaters. I love the people who own the movie theaters. They're, they're such lovers of movies and of that group experience that nothing will ever replace that. But I understand right now during quarantine, it'd be more irresponsible to put people into a movie theater. And so if there's a few movies that are just kind of there that you go like, what, this could actually entertain people. I'm supportive of that. I just don't want to see a world in which there's no movie theaters and where everything gets funneled to streaming. But, also there are certain projects that might work a little bit better on streaming that might not get a full audience and box office into a theater. So it's going to be a lot of, and that doesn't mean that it has to be all big budget superhero movies. I mean, all you have to do is look at the movies of Jordan Peele to see, those movies cost like $5 and $10 million each, and they made $1 bazillion. So it's just about what's an undeniable idea that makes you want to go and have a group experience. But the theatrical experience, we love theaters. We're always going to love movie theaters.
I love hearing you that. I love hearing you say that. As we wrap up, I've got to ask: are you wearing the full suit or is it shorts?
Nope. Look, see,
the full suit. Wow.
Right. You're not messing with an amateur here, my friend.
I am so impressed with you right now. That is the best. Paul, I've been chatting with you. I think my first interview with you, I think I was 19 for Bridesmaids. You have been kind to me every interview my entire career, and whenever people ask about you, I have nothing but amazing things to say, which isn't the case about everybody. But you are always so great, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day and dressing up for me to do this.
Thanks, Jake. You are the best. I always love seeing you, and I hope everybody can watch Love Life. It's such an amazing show. Anna Kendrick turns in a performance of a lifetime, and it's 10 episodes that are just delightful. And if you're bored every day at 5 o'clock Pacific time, LA time, 7 o'clock in Chicago, join me on Instagram every single day. I do quarantine cocktail time. We're on this very set, and I'll show you how to make a cocktail. We'll raise money for charity, and we'll have a lot of goofy fun.
I love that. I'm going to put all that on my show and get it out there and get the word out. But seriously, you're a great guy. Thank you. So what is the cocktail for tonight?
I haven't figured it out yet, but there's one I might do that really packs a punch. So
that's perfect.
Sometimes I do ones that are just kind of normal, and sometimes I do ones so we're going to get ready for the weekend tonight.
I love it. Paul, good to see you, man. Be safe. Take care. Tell your family I say hello, and we'll talk soon.
You too. Thanks, Jay.
Take care, buddy. Good to see you.
You too. Bye-bye.